Two big parties dominate Australian politics, but then there's these ones. And then there's these guys, independents. Support for the major parties dropped to a record low at the last election. Almost 1 in 3 voters didn't support them. Like their name suggests, an independent MP is separate from any party with their own individual policies and views. But they can be broken down into a few different groups, so here's a quick guide to who's who. Andrew Wilkie, Helen Haines and Bob Katter have been some of the longest serving independents in Parliament who are on the current crossbench. The crossbench is where independents and minor parties sit, by the way, so they're in between the two major parties. Andrew Wilkie is a former spy and he advocates pretty heavily for privacy protections and against pokies in the gambling industry. Helen Haines is a former nurse, she was also a midwife, and she's got a regional and rural focus. Bob Katter is one of the best known independents in the Parliament because he's a bit of a character.
Let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom as far as I'm concerned. But I ain't spending any time on it.
Technically, he leads the Katters Australia Party, but he's actually the only one elected to federal parliament. His focus is on limiting monopolies like the supermarkets, nationalisation of essential services like gas and airports, and also giving everyone the right to own a gun. So he's not really a party man. There's actually a few other people in this camp, including Jackie Lambie, Rebecca Sharkey and Fatima Payman. And this is where things sort of start to get a bit complicated because some independents do sometimes behave very similarly to a party. Which brings us to the Teals. This group of independents are informally labelled the Teals. Economically, this group tend to lean a bit more conservative. Socially, they tend to lean a bit more to the left. Hence this teal label. It's a mix of green and blue, the Liberals. But again, each one of them is slightly different. But they do almost always vote together, and they're all backed by a major fundraising group called Climate 200. It's run by the director of the Smart Energy Council, millionaire Simon Holmes-A-Court. The group also provides financial support to a number of MPs who aren't in the teal grouping, but support strong action to counter global warming. One of them is Senator David Pocock. The former Wallabies captain won the ACT's second Senate seat off a Liberal in 2022, advocating for strong action on climate change and transparency in politics. Another independent who made it into federal parliament at the last election was in Western Sydney. Former ABC journalist and local Liberal candidate Dai Lee wasn't backed by Climate 200. She's the first Vietnamese Australian refugee to win a seat in the parliament and is particularly focused on cost of living relief and better services for her electorate. At the other end of the political spectrum from the Teals are One Nation and the United Australia Party. One Nation has 2 senators and the UAP has 1. Both parties fall far to the right. One Nation wants to reduce Australia's refugee intake, reduce availability of unemployment payments and impose heavy restrictions on abortion. Members of the party have also been associated with spreading conspiracy theories, as have the UAP. Mining magnate Clive Palmer pumped $123 million into his campaign at the last election and won one Victorian Senate seat that's held by Ralph Babbitt. So you might know who you want to vote for, but what about how to actually vote? Check out the rest of Politics Explained for more info on how, when, and where to do it.